Lori from CustomizedWalls.com and one of the moderators for the interior design community on Google+, and actually on Instagram and other places too. And I have some fantastic guests and a great subject. We're talking about antiques, vintage versus new, and how to incorporate that into your home. And I have with me Susan Serra, who is, our kitchen and bath moderator, and also has this gorgeous new rug line that you're going to hear about. And Heather Vieira, is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah.
Okay, good. And you have a new shop, so we want to hear all about that, but I'm going to start and introduce Susan. Susan, introduce yourself, please.
Oh, sure. Hi, Lori. Thanks for having me on. It's always such a privilege to be on here with you, and you have such a great broadcast, so I really I appreciate it. It's just such an unusual thing for the industry and very important, very important. So so I am a kitchen designer for many, many years, and then I have a certified kitchen designer here on Long Island, and I kind of have nurtured a long-time passion and made it into a new brand, which is called Scandinavian Made. And it's Scandinavian rugs that I personally select in Sweden. They're very specific, special type of rugs, which I will talk about later. But I'm just so excited. I love to be around them, and I just want to share some things about them. So, and always happy to be part of the interior design community.
Yeah, we love our community. We were just talking about how much we love it. Heather, tell us about your new shop and introduce yourself a little bit.
Fantastic. Hi, Lori. Hi, Susan. And just like Susan said, it's an honor to be here, and thank you both so much. And I'm tickled pink. I really am. I'm going to have this giant smile for the whole conversation, I think. So I buy and sell antique and vintage and decorative furniture, furnishings, art, and lighting, and all those great stuff. My family and I, we recently moved up to the South Shore of Boston, and we live in this little town. And I said, geez, it's hard working out of a storage unit. So I started looking around, and I found this great space. It was a former dance studio, and a little bit of paint, and well, a lot of paint and a lot of hard work, and voila, we have a nice showroom, and it's just a great place to be and hang out and have great clients and friends come over, and a place to store all the crazy stuff I buy.
Oh, wonderful. And we actually do know quite a few New England designers, so I'm looking forward to actually getting some of them to your shop, because I love the ability to add vintage into our homes. I'm a fan of history, and I collect pieces not only that are family heirlooms. I have my grandmother's silver. I have a china set that was from my great grandparents. I have this and even crafts that there was my husband bought me these this woodworker he was 80 years old, but he had made them when he was in his 20s, and he only made 2 sets of these curved candlesticks that were like amazing. And he bought one of the sets. I don't know why the guy even sold one, but he bought one of the sets from the guy. It was like one of my favorite gifts ever for my husband. So I love stuff like this. I mean, it really brings a sense of history. It's you're also thinking that you're bringing in different ethnicities too into your home, which is such a great thing to do. I ran into, weirdly, my husband used to travel a lot for work, and so one of his trips brought him to Turkey, and he went to the Grand Bazaar, and he brought me home this copper basin, and it has pomegranates engraved on it. It's 19th century, and I ran into today, believe it or not, the Grand Bazaar on Instagram.
Wow!
Yes,
on Instagram.
Like, I am blown away that these 2 ladies decided to. They grew up. They have their family owns 7 shops within the Grand Bazaar, and they decided to start They went to college and learned about e-commerce, so they're bringing it online, and they ship to the United States. It's the coolest thing.
I love that.
I love it. I was looking at it all this morning, just drooling over the ceramics and the copper plates and the rugs, Susan.
Yes.
So,
Don't buy those rugs. Buy my rugs.
I totally feel both of you. How do you, Heather, start a collection like this? Were there specific pieces you were looking for?
Well, I'd like to say that I had some master plan and I had it all thought out, but I am the kind of person I shoot from the hip. And if I see something and I like it, I buy it. And more often than not, I'm buying something that I've never had before, or maybe something that I've always admired and wanted to learn about. And for me, each new thing that I buy is like a new chance to learn something. So if I'm buying like a piece of art from another time, maybe something I've never really tried before, because we all have our comfort zones, like, oh, I just like to collect abstract art, or I just like to collect portraits from the 1920s. But sometimes when you're out there and something speaks to you, maybe you're not even sure why, but it draws you in and you just say, I think I'll get it. So that's the kind of buyer I am. And when I put all the pieces together, even if it's, like a 1940s painting and maybe in a 1600 frame, it can still talk to each other. They can still have a dialogue, because I think if you're buying something and you love it, you can make it work together, and then they can get together and tell a cool story.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, how are you going to estate sales? Are you going to, and I have to ask this because honestly, this is probably one of the things I'm sure designers and I can feel. I am not a haggler. Like, I don't like to haggle. I don't like even going to, I love to go to garage sales and things like that, but I don't actually like to ever haggle with them. My husband, like, hates that about me, but I can't. I'm like, I just feel so bad saying, or if you go and then you leave because you didn't like anything, you know what I mean? It's just.
You just buy something because you feel bad.
Right. I'm like, I'll just buy something because, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. That's my hard part. The hard part about buying vintage for me is because it's personal to someone else, and someone else, cared for it and they loved it, and there's an emotional attachment to it. How do you work around that?
Well, that's a great question, because that's a super important part of antique and vintage buying.
Yeah.
These are pieces that have been in someone's family and in their home for 40 years, 100 years. So I don't shop at that many estate sales. I shop a lot with other dealers. I shop a lot at the flea market. So I'm up at 2 o'clock in the morning, driving for an hour to go walk around in a field in the dark, in the rain or snow, as we've had up here. But when I do go to estate sales, I always try to respect the fact, firstly, that I'm in someone else's home, because that, I think, is the most important part. And I always like it when they bring in someone to run their estate sales who is a professional, who knows how to value the objects. And yes, of course, I want the best price possible, but I never want to treat that other person with anything less than respect. So I totally feel you, because I'm the same way. I don't like to haggle and bargain too. Like, I'll ask someone, oh, is that your best price? But I'm never going to be like on top of them or cut their price in half and be like, oh, you want $100? How about $20? Like that kills me inside to do that. Because I know it has value too, like, or else I wouldn't even be asking about it.
Yeah.
So I'm with you.
It was funny because my husband, I showed him that the Grand Bazaar was on Instagram. He goes, does their online shop come with people bothering you? So I know how that feels. I mean, I've been into many different markets that were like that.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of, for a designer, that's the, or even a homeowner, that is kind of the beauty about buying from a shop like yours. They don't have to worry about that scenario.
Yeah.
They go in, you've done all of that.
I've done all the legwork. I got up at 2 o'clock in the morning, and sometimes I've gone to places and not bought anything and come home just like with a cup of coffee and a donut, because if there's a donut involved, I'm there, no matter what.
So now I'll ask Susan first, because I'm curious, when you're looking through and you're trying to create a selection for your own shop, what are some of the things that you're thinking about? Are you thinking about things just that you would like, or are you also trying to please the market? Susan?
Oh, I trust my own, like Heather says, I trust my own eye. I've been designing for, 25 years, and I understand pattern and color and texture, and again, I need to have something speak to me. It has to speak to me, and then I'll know there's something special. Something special has to be a part of it. The stories about the rugs are just amazing. They're wonderful, but aesthetically they're each different, because each rug was woven by a woman in the dark of winter in Sweden, like 20, 30, 40, 50, 80, 100 years ago. So I have rugs that are newly woven and that are 100 years old, all with a wooden loom, and all by an individual woman in her home. So what I find exciting is, what could that woman 80 years ago imagine that these rugs would be sold on the internet and they'd be bought up by a U.S. woman who loved them, and what would they think? And they were making it for their home. So it's really interesting. There's so much to talk about with these rugs. So I don't know if that answers your question at all, or if I got off track.
It does. It's about having that connection and with the piece, and trusting that your design experience is going to pass on those great, that eye to someone else, and to be able to put that into their home. I just love that you've gotten into this, Susan, because you started out as you are a kitchen designer. You're a kitchen design icon, really.
Oh, thanks.
You are, and Google her, Susan Serra. You will see she's been in every magazine. She's been on every everything you could possibly want as a designer. And I can say that your passion for rugs, it's not been a recent thing. You've had this going on for a while, art and photography.
Well, that's true, and I can't say why I was drawn to it, but I can say that I've been collecting them on my own for 15 years, maybe more. And as some of the kitchen clients, as I was moving away a little bit from that, not from the kitchen industry, very involved, love it, but doing client work, I guess this other interest just kind of said, okay, now you're ready for me.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what happened, and then I was off and running, and now I have about 220 rugs, and I'm expecting about, don't tell my husband, okay? I'm expecting about another 120 rugs, which should come next month, and I love each and every one of them, and some of them I won't be able to let go.
I can imagine. Now, Heather, do you carry rugs as well, or are you just a mix of all different kinds of antiques and vintage?
I have yet to enter the rug market, and now I know where to go to when I want a good rug. I'm just going to call Susan.
That's right.
I'm not even going to look any further, because I'm sold. Yeah. And it's her passion too, that it's exciting. It's exciting to someone else. And when you see how involved she is in her product, it's not just something she's selling that she doesn't believe in. This is something exciting that you're passionate about, and I love that. So, Lori, if I'm looking for a rug, I'm just going to call Susan.
Oh, how nice. How nice.
The rest of the stuff that I deal in, it's cool, fun stuff, and it's everything I would live with. Like, I don't buy anything that I wouldn't live with.
Yeah, well, the good thing too is that you can, you know, people think, oh, a runner is for hallways. It's not. A runner you can use so many different places. You can put it next to your bed. You can put it in front of your couch. You can layer multiple runners in a room diagonally over each other. You can put it under a piece of furniture in front of a bookcase on stairs. There are so many ways, which I will be talking about in the weeks and months to come, so many ways to use a runner that people don't, you know, think about. That's just a little detail.
Now,
That's
that
exciting.
brings into something you've got, because you've got all your different ways to use these vintage items, home decor, furniture. What is the advantage, both of you? I would like individually. What is the advantage for buying something that is vintage or antique versus buying a new? I mean, if I'm looking at it, what are the items that you would say right off the top of your head? Okay, these things you should at least consider the vintage market for. Heather?
Well, sure. I love vintage items because I think they have a story to share. And I think that they've had a secret life that they are just bursting to share again. A lot of these items were maybe languishing in an attic or a closet, forgotten about, or maybe getting ready to be thrown out. Getting these pieces, giving them a second chance, putting them into another, like a new home that perhaps shares a whole lot of like contemporary furnishings and new design, and then injecting a little bit of history, I think is very exciting. I think a super fun way to get started with antique and vintage pieces is with your art. It's an easy way to get started. Because it's something that you can place on your wall. It can go in so many places. It can go over your sofa or over your headboard. It can go anywhere in your home. And then that story that it has to tell, whether it's a great portrait and maybe you research it and you find out who the sitter is, or it's a landscape and perhaps it's near in the town where you grew up or something. Or maybe the story itself is how you acquired this piece. You know, oh my gosh, I was out with my designer or out with my best friend, and we'd gotten a coffee, and then we went to a great antique shop, and I found it tucked away like behind a chair, and all of those things. Just you inject your own personality when you're telling that story, and then that piece can also add so much, whether it's a piece from the 1940s or the 1640s. So I always love to buy art and frames and old mirrors. I even love how a lot of the backing from the mirror, maybe the silvering has come off a little bit. You see a little bit of the tarnish. That I think just gives it a little more of a pizzazz almost. I don't see like a paint chip or a scratch as something that would deter me from shopping or buying it. I see it as, oh, this had a life. You know, this was somewhere. Maybe it was kicking around in someone's house, or maybe 100 years ago kids were playing ball in the house like kids do and knocked it off the wall or something. So I would start with art because I think that's a very good, safe place to start with, and it gives you so many options for researching and finding out what it is.
Yeah, and honestly, I've worked in the art field prior to starting Customized Walls and interior design community. I worked in the art industry for a long time in printing art, with the G-Clay industry. And I have to say that I've always subscribed to the belief that you have to love your art, and you don't just collect because it's going to, value,
I love it.
I can't stand. I mean, I met a lot of collectors that work that way, that buy because of an investment, but buy what you love. Buy what you, and that that obviously can come in something vintage, and you can update too. I mean, if it's not expensive, in terms of it's a high end gallery piece, you can inject something a little funky by changing out frames, and you can do a lot with things like that, right?
You can have a lot of fun with it. You really can. The abstract behind me, it was folded up along with 4 other ones, and they were in this warehouse in Philadelphia that was a lighting manufacturer who went out of business. And I'm like, what are these doing in here? So I bought them along with a whole bunch of other like crazy stuff, big murals, all this weird stuff that I didn't expect to be buying. But they have a story. Like what these were doing in there, I have no idea. But now it's kind of like they're not tucked away anymore, like forgotten under somebody's desk. They're, you know, on my wall. And this chair I'm sitting in, it's a great, you know, 1940s fan back chair. And when I bought it, it had shag carpeting on it. I'm not an upholstery expert, but I don't think it's supposed to be shag carpeting. So, you know, change out the upholstery. And just like you said, you can totally add your own personality into these things. Go with your designer, go with your best friend, whoever. Pick out some great upholstery, pick out a new frame, make it your own, and take ownership of that piece. And then you're then part of the history of that piece. And if you give it to a best friend or to a child or to whomever, that piece will then live on, and maybe they'll change something out or they'll paint the frame or whatever, and it'll continue, it'll go on.
Yes, the ultimate green, as one of our members said, you know.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that. Susan, how about you? You picked out some vintage in your collection, and what was the reason to have the vintage versus the new rugs?
Well, I actually have both. In fact, I'm going to reach behind me, and I have vintage, I have new, and I also have antique.
Yes.
And antique, of course, is defined. Here's one. And what I look for, sometimes I'm going to put this up a little bit close, is I might look for the colors, I might look for the tightness of, let me see, here we go. This is woven quite tightly. It's beautiful. It's symmetrical. Some of them are more naive and may not be symmetrical in the colors that they use, color segments. Some may be floral, things like that. So in answer to your question, each type of rug, it has to be special. There could be an antique rug that's 100 years old that just doesn't do it for me. Or there could be a wonderful antique rug 100 years old that is very, very, very worn, but to me that patina is part of the interest, and I can really see that within a contemporary room as a statement of texture. So that's the antique. The vintage, of course, ranges up to 100 years old. And each time period, there were trends in rug designs, you know, rug loom, you know, weaving rugs. There are trends. So you can see what happened in the 50s, which rugs were in the 40s. So, you know, in terms of the weaving styles, there are so many types of weaving styles. And then the new ones also follow the traditional method on a wooden loom. And there are some made of denim, which I have. I have a number made of denim, and you know, I have more modern styles. So I have so many to put up yet on the website, but I see wonderful things in all time periods. So I don't know if that answers.
I love that you both have hit on something that I think is really important, which is that you have these contemporary new homes. You have people, and I can tell you, you know, I've lived in new construction. I've lived, you know, when I moved back to New England, I wanted an older house. But when we lived in Phoenix, we had brand new construction house, and you yearn for something older or something with texture because everything is so sleek and modern, and you know, you want something that has age to it. It sometimes can feel almost like a, I don't know, you know, the McMansion style, you know,
everything. It softens it a little bit, and every single thing that Heather said before about the stories, about you know, buy what you love and things like that is exactly what I would have said. So, you know, this is Heather, I can see as a person who, her heart and soul is, she waits, she understands. Heather, you seem to understand that things need to speak to you. And you
Yes.
wait, and you're patient, and they will speak to you.
I agree 100%, Susan. And when I am talking to you too and listening to your stories, I also see the same type of interest. And you know what I think a lot of it also is? It's that desire that we all share to always be learning something new. And, you know, you're not a rug expert, but you
No.
found a passion and an interest, and you said, you know what? I love these. I love their texture. I love their history. I love who made them. This is
Yes.
fascinating stuff. And it's the same way I got started in the antique business. I moved to New York City. I didn't have a job. I had nothing. I just knew that I wanted to be an antique dealer. I'm wandering around the flea market the first weekend I'm there, and I'm waiting for that light bulb moment. And then it hit me, and I found my muse, which was picture frames.
Huh.
And for whatever reason, like, we don't always know what it is about a thing, but it's trusting your intuition. It's
You have
going
to
with
be
your gut.
open. You have to
You do
be
have to be
open
open.
to that voice. I also collect other things. I collect Scandinavian oil paintings, and I also collect pottery, Scandinavian pottery from like the 40s to the 70s.
Oh,
So
very nice.
a particular period. I have a lot of that. I have a lot. My house has so much stuff. I could never do a minimalist design in my house. I have so much stuff. But yeah, I mean, and it's wonderful if you have access to that inner voice, then you can express yourself and live you know, move about your home and really enjoy what your eyes are taking in. I think that's what it's about.
It's
Definitely.
character, you know, and I think that right now the culture of, you know, of this throwaway generation that I'm even in, it's like we buy things that we know we're going to throw away or that are not going to last us very long, and I think that creates almost an environment where we want to have something of history, whether we were able to inherit that from our families or not. And so we want to surround ourselves with something that has been here and has withstood the test of time.
Yeah, and you know,
right? I mean,
and the good news is many of these types of things are very affordable.
Yes.
Very, very affordable. Very.
Absolutely.
I mean, my rugs are very affordable. I'm sure half your store is very affordable, Heather. Or
Absolutely.
More.
Now, how about your store, Heather? What kinds of? Give me a rundown of what you carry.
Well, in the store you'll find some great art, and it might be a portrait from the early 20th century, or maybe a great abstract from just a few years ago. I have an old master in there from the 1550s. So each one of those pieces I bought because it spoke to me, because I appreciated it, and because I wanted to learn a little bit more about that thing. And speaking to what Susan said, those things are affordable. Now, of course, we can take anything to that highest degree and only buy, you know, old masters of the highest caliber, but you can get in on something at your price point, at your level, and then you can grow that passion from there. And also, just like what you said, Lori, about bringing in things from different cultures, I love that. And I want to learn more about Scandinavian pottery. Get interested in it. Talk to an expert. Talk to Susan. Hey, Susan, I want to get a couple pots. What do you think about this idea? Or speak to some friends who are also interested too. And when you walk into my shop, you'll see it all. I have some great slipper chairs from the 1940s, and I also have these other super tall, almost sculptural chairs from the 1960s, a great chaise lounge from the early 20th or late 19th century. So whatever the piece
of that, I have a question about that. Do you reupholster them prior to selling them, or do you like leave that up to the person who decides to buy it, whether they want to reupholster or not? What do you do with that?
That's such a great question. Sometimes if the upholstery is like this one, like shag carpeting, I'm going to put some upholstery on there. The chaise lounge, I did it just in the muslin, just to show the beauty of the line of the piece, and then to just kind of deliver it to the end user and say, here you go, it's ready for your special touch. The slipper chairs, they have this amazing upholstery. It's original. It's like a velvet. It's gorgeous. So I didn't touch that. The pair of super sculptural chairs, they have their original upholstery too, which is a little worn around the edges, but I wanted to leave them as they are just because I think it really, the line of the upholstery really speaks to the line of the chair. So whomever put those two together, I didn't want to mess with that. I didn't want to touch it. And then I had another pair of chairs. They're so comfortable, but it was in the 50s, and they had the wonderful vinyl, like Naugahyde stuff. Let me tell you something. You don't want to sit on that in the summertime. So those I reupholstered.
Well, I love that. I love that you take it and you can do that work for a client too, so they don't have to, you know, envision what it could look like. Because I can imagine a designer probably, you know, no problem. They can go in and figure it out. But, you know, regular consumer, I know I'm not an interior designer, I'm a graphic designer, so I would be intimidated. I would not know what necessarily to upholster something in. So I think that, you know, that you work with people, or that you've already kind of, you know, developed whether or not the piece could sustain with its current upholstery is kind of interesting. I think that's a great idea. Yeah. Wow, this has been very exciting. Now, Susan, tell us, you have a new website, correct?
Yes. So I refreshed the Scandinavian Made brand. It's the same logo, which I love. And the website is scandinavianmade.com. And I have so many more rugs to upload, each one unique, one of a kind in the, you know, nothing is outsourced, obviously. They're made by a woman on her wooden loom. So look for these, and you can sort them in many different ways. You can sort them by length. You can sort them by age. You can sort them by color. So there's so much flexible sorting ability. So take a look, and thank you for this.
Now, Heather, you said your shop is not online yet, but you can go, obviously, right to your shop. Where is it located?
Sure. It's in a little town just outside of Boston called Weymouth. And, of course, I have, you know, hours during the day. And I do have a website. It's but you know what, the product pictures, it's a link to my Instagram feed.
I love that, actually.
I am not as organized. But I am not as organized as Susan.
Yes, I follow you on Instagram. I always love your stuff. So.
Oh, thank you. So I just linked the product page to my Instagram feed, but I love the fact that Susan has, I'm jealous now because she has everything on her site organized, and I'm like, oh, geez, like mine are all this.
Oh, it's easy. Ask me how later. It's easy.
Okay, good.
So now, if someone found your Instagram, what's your Instagram?
It's 20th Century by HKFA.
Okay.
And the funny thing is, I seem to have chosen the world's longest name.
Well, we're in your design community, so I get you. I feel you.
Yes.
Like.
And HKFA is when I and even my name is vintage. So going back to 2002 when I moved to New York, almost like fresh off the bus with a suitcase and a dream. You know, it was really like that. A lot of my clients who I was selling the frames to, they would be such and such fine art, and Deborah Force fine art, or Mark Borghi fine art. So I said, hey, I want to be a contemporary of these people. I want them to take me seriously. So in I would stroll into their beautiful Park Avenue or Upper Madison Avenue galleries in my Chuck Taylors and jeans and on my shoulder after I had taken the subway up there. But so I called it Heather Carley Fine Art.
I like it.
And,
I like it.
Yeah, now since most of the stuff that I'm buying, even though I do have some pieces from the 19th century and a little earlier, but the majority of furniture and furnishings that I deal in are from the 20th century. So they are pieces from the 1920s or the 50s, even up into the 70s and 80s. Like a lot of the great on-trend, like lucite and brass and all those mixed metal pieces, those were so hot in the 70s. And we have, you know, so many great pieces to look back to. But just saying that those pieces are vintage, like that means that I'm vintage too. So that's okay. I'll roll with it.
Now, if someone saw something that they loved on your Instagram, can they get in touch with you? Would you ship?
Oh, definitely. Yes. I'm always open to that. I even deliver stuff, you know, because waitressing for many, many years, I love customer service and I love to have a happy customer. So I think I'm not just selling them like a sofa or, you know, a lamp or something. I want to sell them a piece that's going to be part of their home that they'll enjoy, and I want to make it as special as possible. So absolutely, I love to ship and I love to make sure that my clients are happy.
I love that. I love that. Well, thank you both for coming. I think this is a great conversation because I think it's really important that people think about how they can inject a little bit of history in their home, and I think that these two places are fantastic resources. Another great resource you might want to check out is the Antique Design Center at High Point. If you're going to High Point, make sure you go there. They actually do have an Instagram contest, so check out. Yep. Yeah, you got to check it out because you can win something. I think there's a cash prize or something. I would love.
There's a big prize.
Yeah,
I'm so excited to be there soon.
I don't remember what it is, but it's a cash prize. So definitely check that out. And visit us.
I can't wait to get there.
Yeah, on interiordesignCommunity.com or Interior Design Community on Instagram, and anywhere you can find us, and hashtag IDC Designers, and subscribe to our channel. All right, thanks everybody. Bye. Have a great weekend.
Bye.
Bye.